A rusty fire hydrant with a Michigan factory stamp sticks out of the damp, rotting earth, tightly wrapped in thick vines. All around is the ringing, humid stuffiness of the equator. The air is so thick that it settles on the lungs like a heavy sediment, and the smell of decaying wood and mold embedded in concrete overwhelms all other senses. The silence is broken only by the shrill cry of howler monkeys and the guttural screech of bending rebar. A huge 40-meter-high water tower, covered with red corrosion ulcers, looms over the ruins like a tombstone monument to civilization. This place shouldn't exist. This is a piece of the American Midwest that was surgically cut out and forcibly implanted in the very heart of the Brazilian jungle. Coordinates: 3 degrees 49 minutes south latitude, 55 degrees 29 minutes west longitude. The bank of the Tapajos River, Amazonia. Almost 10,000 people once lived, worked, and died here. This is Fordland, a crazy utopian city built from scratch in 1928 by one of the richest men in human history, Henry Ford. A city that was supposed to be a triumph of industrialization over nature, but turned into a green hell. In 1945, this place was finally declared dead. Today, Fordland's physical condition causes primal awe. The paved roads are hacked by the powerful roots of giant trees. The skeleton of an ultra-modern hospital with empty eye sockets looks out at the river, and inside, under a layer of thick moss, the remains of medical equipment are still rotting. White American bungalows with neat porches are devoured by termites and black mold. A step inside any building echoes hollowly. The floors cave in under the weight of the steps, exposing the black emptiness of the basements, where venomous snakes and bat colonies now breed. The humidity here absorbs everything. The metal crumbles to dust, the paint comes off the walls in bloody scabs, and the jungle methodically digests the concrete. It seems that the forest does not just grow around the ruins. It purposefully erases the traces of human presence, as if taking revenge for the wound inflicted on it. And this revenge was brutal, methodical, and absolutely inescapable. The billionaire sincerely believed that with the help of a bottomless wallet, strict discipline, and conveyor logic, it was possible to subdue the most hostile ecosystem on the planet. He was confident that he could make the jungle work according to the schedule of the Detroit factories. But Amazon had its own schedule, and soon, the people who were brought here to build paradise on Earth will realize that nature does not negotiate. She's just waiting for you to make a mistake. In 1928, everything looked different. The scale of the ambitions was monumental. A fleet of cargo ships piled high with steel, glass, cement, and heavy machinery landed on the shore of a wild river. Ford poured a whopping $20 million into this project, an amount equivalent to hundreds of millions today. The goal was pragmatic: to break the British rubber monopoly and provide Ford Motor Company factories with their own rubber for car tires. But behind this pragmatism, there was an obsession. Ford decided to build an ideal American city in the jungle. The illusion of normalcy was amazing. In the middle of the wild thickets, where jaguars roamed yesterday, neat rows of houses with running water and electricity have grown up. Perfect paved streets were laid. Bakeries, a cinema, a sawmill, a post office, and even a golf course were built. The workers enjoyed ice cream in the cafeterias, listened to jazz, and walked along the lighted sidewalks. The hum of the generators created an artificial heartbeat of this place. Factory pipes were smoking, the rubber plantation conveyor was gaining momentum, and the snow-white 100-bed hospital was considered the best in all of South America. But behind the facade of the ideal American dream was a totalitarian dictatorship. Ford hated the local culture and enforced his rules by force. The workers, accustomed to a free life and a siesta in the hottest weather, were forced to work a strict schedule from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. under the scorching equatorial sun. They were forbidden to drink alcohol, forbidden to communicate with women on the territory, and forced to wear uncomfortable identification badges. Instead of fresh fruits and fish, they were fed with canned peaches, oatmeal, and burgers. The atmosphere inside the colony was heating up every day. The heat reached 40 degrees in the shade. The humidity squeezed the last of the strength out of people. Supervisors from Michigan, who did not understand a word of Portuguese, walked around with stopwatches, demanding impossible efficiency from exhausted workers. To top it all off, they were forced to attend compulsory readings of American poetry and dance a quadrille in the evenings. It was a mental torture wrapped in the wrapper of civilizational progress. A pressure cooker, the valve of which was tightly welded. The crack in this artificial reality appeared not from old age, but from pressure. Humid, stuffy December, 1930. The air in the workers' canteen became thick with sweat and irritation. The food smelled rotten again. The refrigeration units couldn't cope with the equatorial climate. There was a sharp, high-pitched wail of a factory siren, announcing the end of a short break. Hundreds of tired, malaria-ridden and dictatorship-ridden people exchanged glances. No one got up from the tables. The sound of a falling metal plate broke the silence. December 20th, 1930. Rebel, cruel, uncontrolled. It will go down in history as the rise of the broken pots. Short punches on the tables, the sound of breaking glass. The screams are in Portuguese. The indignation that had been accumulating for months spilled out in an avalanche of primal rage. The workers grabbed chairs, knives, and machetes. Metal trays flew through the windows of the perfect American dining rooms. The crowd tore down the kitchen doors. The panicked managers tried to calm the workers down, but stones and pieces of rebar flew at them. Panic. Escape. The American guards, abandoning everything, ran to the pier. They started the engines of the boats with trembling hands. They sailed to the middle of the river, watching in horror as their ideal utopia burned. Black smoke from the torched trucks rose into the thick green sky. Workers smashed generators, destroyed the hated clocks that dictated their lifetimes, and tore up timesheets. The city was plunged into darkness and chaos. But the real disaster was biological. While people were cutting each other, nature dealt its death blow. Ford ordered the planting of hevea, rubber trees, in dense, even rows like apple trees in Michigan. They don't do that in the jungle. In the jungle, distance protects trees from parasites. Millions of densely planted seedlings have become an ideal buffet for the deadly fungus Microcyclus oolei and leaf beetle caterpillars. The epidemic consumed the plantation in a matter of weeks. The leaves turned black, curled, and fell off. Rotting slime oozed out of the bark. After the collapse, life left Fordland rapidly and ugly. The final evacuation order was issued in 1945. Ford's grandson sold the territory to the Brazilian government for a measly $250,000. The outcome was like fleeing from the plague. People didn't pack their things, they just dropped them off to catch the last boat. The territory was cordoned off for a short time, but soon the government gave up. It was too expensive to guard the ruins in the middle of the Amazon. Creepy still lifes of a hasty escape are frozen in the deserted buildings. Metal Ford cars were left to rust on the shelves of the children's rooms. There were stacks of timesheets in the offices, swollen from the humidity, where someone's shift ended in mid-sentence. In the operating rooms of the hospital, surgical instruments were still shining on the tables, gradually becoming covered with a layer of red rust and green lichen. Huge X-ray machines stood in the dark corridors, looking like mechanical monsters electrocuted. The clock on the wall of the main workshop was permanently frozen at the time when the generators stopped. Soon, looters began to dismantle Fordland. Local Indians and tramps entered empty houses, cut off copper wiring, and stole furniture and dishes. But they were afraid to stay here for a long time. Paranoid rumors began to spread. Those who went deep into the dead plantations told of the eerie feeling of someone looking at their backs, about the sounds of the factory siren, which supposedly still howls softly at night when the wind blows through empty metal pipes, about the shadows of those who died of malaria in an overcrowded hospital, forever trapped in utopia. There is no mysticism, just a banal mental disorder of the survivors and the roar of the wind. But it was easier for the locals to believe in the curse. Historians are still amazed. How could the best minds of Detroit engineering be so blind? Ignoring the basic laws of agronomy and tropical medicine looks like mass insanity. They tried to burn the infected trees, hoping to stop the fungus with fire. Right now, the ruins of Fordland are continuing their endless process of decomposition. Toxic lead-based paint is pouring off the walls of American mansions, poisoning the soil for meters around. The roofs have caved in, and now poisonous orchids bloom in the places where billiards was once played. Thousands of bat colonies hang in the former cinema where Hollywood films were played to workers. The city is not guarded by the army. There are no barbed wire or checkpoints with dogs. The role of the guard is performed by nature itself. The logistics are so complicated and the climate is so harsh that casual tourists don't get here. Squatters, descendants of those workers, live in the surviving, half-rotted concrete boxes. They huddle in the shade of a rusty water tower, breathe asbestos dust from collapsing floors, and drink water from old wells that have long been contaminated with heavy metals. Their health is broken by the legacy left by a bygone empire.